Hi again, sixth graders. This live class is a review for your Quiz 2 in Unit 5. Everything that is on this video is going to be on your quiz, so I would advise you to take notes. So you can either stop this video right now and grab your study guide or a notebook to write things down, or you can play it again in a few minutes. So we are going to start with Greece, ancient Greece. And they were talking about the golden age of Greece, which was 480 to 430 BC. So here are some facts about ancient Greece. Let me go down a little bit because you can't see the last thing on this slide. There we go. During the golden age of Greece, Athens was the most powerful city-state. Philip of Macedon was able to easily conquer Greece because there had been too many internal wars. So, which means that before Philip of Macedon conquered Greece, they had a lot of wars between themselves, like among the city-states in Greece and among the towns and villages. So they were already fighting amongst themselves, so it was easy for him to conquer it. Jury trial, which is a right that we have now in the United States, was an individual right that initially came from Greece. They had that idea a long time ago, more than 2,500 years ago. Another fact is Athens and Sparta are the two city-states that fought in the Peloponnesian War. Okay, so that's something you're going to have to remember for the quiz. They're going to have you choose which city-states fought in the Peloponnesian War, and you're going to choose Athens and Sparta. Next fact, the Delian League's purpose was to unite the city-states for protection. Okay, so they had that conference or meeting amongst them, and they wanted to get all the city-states together so that they could protect themselves from being conquered again. So in other words, they wanted to unite the city-states instead of having all those internal wars. 4 factors that unified the Greek city-states were religious beliefs, language, literature, and the Olympic Games. Believe it or not, the Olympic Games went a long way to unifying the city-states. And Rome eventually took over Greece after its eventual decline. All right, let's go on to famous ancient Greeks. Euclid wrote a book on geometry. There's Euclid, the father of geometry. Euclid in his 3D world. Things that you study in geometry today came from Euclid thousands of years ago. Hippocrates was another famous ancient Greek. He studied medicine back before medicine was as we know it today. And in medicine today, doctors take something they call a Hippocratic oath, and it is an oath that they will serve their patients and do the best they can and do no harm. That's based on things that Hippocrates studied. And Eratosthenes wrote a book on geography. Remember, geography is studying the land and countries and where things are located. So you're going to have to know about those 3 famous ancient Greeks: Euclid, Hippocrates, and Eratosthenes. 2 big reasons for Greece's decline were internal wars and the rule of the few. We talked about internal wars, but rule of the few means that there were just a few people in power at that time, and the people didn't get much say in things. So that's why there were internal wars, and that's why Philip of Macedon was eventually able to conquer Greece. And there you can see one of the ancient Greek ruins. And so we'll go on to Rome, because remember, Rome took over Greece after its decline. Rome controlled the entire Mediterranean region as a result of the Punic Wars. So Rome rose to power and they became very powerful. They were conquering lots of other countries and city-states at the time. Another fact, Latin, which was spoken in Rome, was the basis for French and Italian languages. Now, Latin is considered a dead language. In other words, it isn't a language that is spoken today in any country of the world, but it is the basis for what they call the Romance languages, French and Italian, and then from those came Spanish. During the Middle Ages, books were written in Latin. So it wasn't a dead language at that time, but now it is. And the common people were not very pleased with the government of Rome. The common people would be like you and I. They were not happy with what was going on in their country, much as a lot of people aren't happy with what is going on in the United States right now. Now, the Roman society had different classes. The lowest class were slaves. They weren't slaves as we know them. They weren't from Africa. They were slaves that they had in their society, but they were treated just as slaves in the United States were treated at one time. They were made to work with no pay, and they were punished harshly. The common citizens were industrial workers and farmers. The equestrian class was the merchants and bankers, and then the ruling class was the aristocrats. In other words, the people who had all of the money. And in that picture, it just shows the difference between the dress of people in the higher classes, like the aristocrats and bankers on the left, and then the common citizens, their dress on the right. Let's go on to reasons for Rome's decline. The laws limited people's freedom, so they were unhappy about that. Farming conditions were poor, so people aren't going to be very happy if they can't make money with farming at that time, because most of the common people were farmers or industrial workers. Enemies invaded. Rome's morals declined. So in other words, the people there and the government was corrupt and didn't do things according to laws and rules, and so morals declined, trade declined. So the goods that they shipped out or brought into Rome, that fell off, and then eventually barbarians conquered the Roman Empire. Because of all of these things, people were unhappy and the barbarians conquered them. On to the Middle Ages. So you're going to have to know the feudal system. The feudal system was a system of land ownership. And over on the right, there is a little chart explaining it. So the feudal system at the top is the king. The king grants land to the barons. The barons grant land to knights out of their holding of what they have, and the knights would grant land out of their holding to the peasants. So the peasants are doing all the work. They provide the food and services to the knights. In turn, the knights provide protection and military service to the barons, and the barons provide money and knights to the king. So, in other words, the king got what he wanted, but through 4 levels of land granting. Let's go back to the column on the left. A serf was the lowest member of feudal society during the Middle Ages. A serf was the peasant who did the work on the land, the hard work, for very little money. Another fact, Catholics established the first schools during the Middle Ages. There weren't really formal schools before that, and the Catholic Church established the first ones. Now, they weren't schools as we know them now, but, and only males got to go, and only those with money. The main purpose of the Crusades was to win the Holy Land back from the Muslims. And two results of the Crusades, people became more tolerant of others, and new ideas and items came back to Europe. So let's go on. The last one is, what questions do you have for me? Remember to always contact me before the quiz if you have any questions about anything that's going to be on it. And you're watching this recording, so you must call me for credit. Both of my phone numbers are there, and you'll just have to give me a few things that you learned in this video in order to get credit for it. So good luck on your test. Bye.